Hi, everybody. Welcome to Phil and Dave's Excellent Adventures. Just Dave here. Today, I'm talking about the movie Thor, Love and Thunder. This is going to be a spoiler review, so if you haven't seen the movie yet and you are concerned about spoilers, I would suggest you go and watch the movie first before you watch this review. Thor, Love and Thunder is the fourth movie in the Thor trilogy and the 29th movie in the MCU series. It follows Thor after the events of Avengers Endgame, I suppose. And also deals with Natalie Portman, Jane Foster from the first couple Thor movies. So as far as what I liked about the movie, overall, I think the cast was great. You know, Chris Hemsworth is always good as Thor. Christian Bale did a great job as Gorr the God Butcher. Natalie Portman, always good. Tessa Thompson, I'm a big fan of. Jaimie Alexander as Sif. We got to see her back in the Thor movies, which is great. I like Jaimie Alexander a lot. I really like the villain in this. I think Christian Bale as Gorr the God Butcher, not only was his performance very good, but the villain itself was a good villain. I actually found myself sympathizing with the villain, which, is not something I've done very often. I think Killmonger and Thanos are maybe the only two MCU villains that I really sort of sympathized with and sort of felt for. Gorr, I think, was one where I absolutely was like, yes, you should kill those gods. They are terrible people. They deserve to die. I like Valkyrie in this a lot. You know, Tessa Thompson plays Valkyrie, and they kind of got into the character being bisexual and everything. She, I believe she refers to herself as a she. I'm not sure what pronouns they use, but they're a king, but still, sort of a woman. They wear suits and everything, but, there's still this sort of femininity to it and everything. I really liked it. I thought it was interesting. I think there's also, like I said, with Valkyrie, there's a lot of sort of gay bi representation in here. Valkyrie's character is gay. I believe Tessa Thompson, or I'm sorry, bi. And I believe Tessa Thompson is as well. And there's a thing with Korg and the way his species reproduces is they hold hands. And he mentions having two fathers. I don't know, his entire species may be all male. I'm not sure. So maybe they're not technically gay, but I don't, either way, the fact that there are same-sex couples or, non-heteronormative kind of couples in here is interesting and I think cool. We've got some great cameos in here from Sam Neill, Matt Damon, Luke Hemsworth, all playing, Loki, Odin, and Thor like they did in Ragnarok. And we also have Melissa McCarthy in here as Hela, which I thought was funny. The stuff with the Guardians was fun. It wasn't in there for very long, but I liked it. The armor, I really like the armor in this movie, particularly on the women, on Valkyrie and Mighty Thor, because, generally speaking, it seems like armor for females, for women is always weird, and they've got boobs in there and it's not very protective and it's kind of more sexy than it is, defensive. Whereas with these, they had a nice mixture where, they looked strong and defensive and capable, but also, they didn't look ridiculous or goofy or ugly by any means. So I like that. I also like that Thor at one point in the sort of early part of the movie, he wears basically like the Thunderstrike uniform from the comics in the 90s, although I believe that was a different Thor. That was, I think, Eric Masters and not Donald Blake, but whatever. This isn't Donald Blake either, I guess. So the music in this movie had a lot of cool, had a lot of Guns N' Roses in it specifically, but yeah, a lot of kind of heavy metal, hard rock kind of stuff in there. Good stuff. I've had Guns N' Roses stuck in my head for the last couple days now. Overall, I think the story was pretty good. I mostly enjoyed the story. I feel like, if I were to explain the story beat by beat to somebody, it would sound like a very interesting story. I liked Omnipotent City, which is the sort of Hall of the Gods place that they go to with all the different gods. It looked really cool, and it was cool to see the different gods in there. I really liked Eternity in this. Eternity is basically straight out of the comics. As soon as they showed the image, I'm like, oh my God, that's the almost exact image that they had on the trading cards I had back in the early 90s as a kid. So that was really cool to see. I liked most of the Asgardian kids as well as Heimdall's kid. They brought in Heimdall's kid. They never mentioned him before, but apparently he has a kid. So that's cool. Special effects were mostly really good. There was one scene early on in the movie where I thought they looked a little goofy. And I actually don't remember what it was now. But for the most part, I think the special effects and the overall look of the movie was a cool look. It's got a nice color palette and it's got, just an overall kind of a cool aesthetic to it. The Shadow Realm is the planet they go to. I wanted to call it the Shadow Zone, but that's a different thing. And they do this kind of black and white thing where they're on the planet and it's mostly black and white. Around, say, like Mighty Thor's hammer, it'll be sort of illuminated or when they use their powers, but for the most part, it's black and white, which is a cool, striking thing to see in a movie in 2022. And I'm surprised that it was black and white for as long as it was. So that was cool. And I also like the ending of the movie where they sort of give us the title Love and Thunder, and then they explain what the meaning of it is. And in the movie, Love is played by Chris Hemsworth's actual daughter, And I believe his sons show up in there too, is playing the sort of younger Thor earlier on in the movie. I really like the typeface or the font that they use for the end credits. They kind of emulate the 80s metal kind of fonts and typefaces that they use for those albums. So that was really cool to see. And I like the runtime of this movie. It was just about 2 hours exactly, which is a nice runtime. It seems like movies are getting more and more longer. And so we keep running into these 2.5, 3 hour long movies. So it was nice to see a movie that was just a nice short 2 hours. As far as what I disliked about this movie, unfortunately, they make Thor kind of an idiot in this. I don't know if at some point between Endgame and this movie, he suffered severe brain damage or what happened, but it's sort of a case of Flanderization or Homer Simpsonization, I guess, because kind of like Homer was like, normal person, at first, and then he kind of got dumber and dumber to the point where like he's a complete idiot who can't even function. That's kind of what they did with Thor in this movie, where he's just, and he's always been kind of an out of place kind of thing. And that was the humor in, say, the first Thor movie is, he slams the goblet down and says he wants another, but that's more of like he's out of place and doesn't understand how things work. Not he's just a complete idiot who doesn't get anything. And it seemed like a lot of that was dealt with in the first couple of movies where he kind of progresses and becomes more normal. And then in this movie, they just kind of threw all that away just for jokes. There's this early fight scene where they call him in and, well, first he jumps on his Stormbreaker and rides it like a broom, which was stupid and kind of silly. But then they do this fight scene where he's like fighting and running around and he's like doing the splits and keeping these two flying things separated. And I don't know, I felt like I was supposed to like it. And it seemed like I would, but for whatever reason, I just didn't. I think it just looked kind of silly to me. It was almost like a Stephen Chow Kung Fu Hustle kind of thing, or even more like one of those Indian movies like RRR, or there's a movie called Robot, where they're just so ridiculous and over the top and insane that it's fun, but to this movie just seems sort of out of place. And the thing with the splits was just like too far for me, where I'm just like, okay, I don't know, it sort of set the scene for the movie, and I didn't like it necessarily. Another thing I sort of didn't like in this movie was sort of the sequence of events. I feel like if I were to explain the entire storyline to somebody, they'd say, oh, it sounds like a good movie. But for whatever reason, maybe just the order they tell things, I didn't like them so much. Like they open with Gorr the God Butcher meeting this god, I think Rapu is his name. And yeah, okay, it's fine. It's actually a good scene. I liked it a lot, but I feel like if it's a Thor movie and I'm going to watch a Thor movie, I want it to start with Thor. And if it starts with anybody else, I don't like it as much. And then even the way they sort of explain Natalie Portman, Jane Foster's character's backstory, I kind of wish they would have done that later, or they would have had her do that, explain that more to Thor later on in the story, or maybe just not even explain that as much, because I didn't necessarily need it. Other than that, I didn't love Russell Crowe as Zeus. I don't know, he's kind of doing, I guess he's doing a Greek accent, but to me it came off as more of an Italian accent. It's fine, it's kind of hammy, it's kind of silly, but it also seems kind of out of place. And I don't know, I guess I sort of see why you cast Russell Crowe, makes sense. But also, I don't know, why not cast a Greek person if you want to do a Greek accent thing? Like, I don't know. As far as the gods go, there's really not enough of the gods. We see some in the city of Omnipotence, or Omnipotent City. And we see a lot of Greek gods like Dionysus and Artemis, and we see like Minerva, who's a Roman goddess, and Bast and Elche. And then Elche, I don't even know if that's a real god. I think maybe it's based on the Lady of Elche, which is like a Tanit, who's a Carthaginian or Punic goddess, maybe. And then Rapu, who's the god at the beginning, is, as far as I know, just completely created for this movie. So it would have been cool to see more of the gods, to see like gods that I recognized, Anubis or Osiris, or, hell, even more, Norse gods, or any other religion. They mentioned Quetzalcoatl, but I didn't see him, but I did see some vaguely Aztec kind of gods and stuff. So yeah, for Gorr being called the God Butcher, there's not really enough God butchering for me. They show him with a kind of a couple, but it would have been really cool again to see him going around and just slaying gods and all sorts of different, from all sorts of different mythologies and stuff. Didn't really get that so much. The humor for me in general was just a little too silly. There's honestly only a couple times that I remembered laughing at this movie. One was Melissa McCarthy as Hela. That was just a funny gag to me. Another one is when the little girl Love shoots at the frying pan. I don't know why, I think it just surprised me, so I thought that was funny. And maybe a little bit when, Jane Foster says break a leg and Thor says I'm gonna break both of his legs. Like, that's kind of funny. All right, but other than that, it was mostly just kind of goofy, silly stuff, like him pouring a beer on the axe and stuff like that. It didn't really work for me. the riding Stormbreaker like a broom was stupid. The screaming goats were just really annoying. I kind of got what they were going for, and at first it was kind of funny, but then it just kept going and kept going. And I don't know, maybe if they did like the fainting goats instead, that would have been funny. But even so, not everything has to be a joke, you know. The tone, like I said, usually people complain about the tone in movies, and it doesn't really bother me because I'm like, hey, you know, real life isn't, you know, a certain genre. You know, you'll have comedy mixed in with drama and stuff like that, but. In this movie, yeah, this is one of the first times that I can really say the tone threw me off, where I'm just like, wow, it's hard to go from, you know, one to the other here. There is, like I said, just too much Guns N' Roses. You know, you hear the first one, I think it's Welcome to the Jungle, and you're like, all right, cool, good song. You know, I dig it, you know. And then they play November Rain at some point. They play Sweet Child of Mine, and they play Paradise City. Now, Paradise City, I think, fits, you know, pretty well for the scene, and Sweet Child of Mine totally makes sense. The other two, not quite as much, although they did pick like the best part of November Rain. But I guess at some point, it just felt like I was watching a movie like Across the Universe or something. Like, I like GNR, I got nothing against him, but like, it would have been cool to mix it up a little bit more. Get some Metallica in there. Get some, you know, Def Leppard in there. You know, get stuff like that would have been really cool. So I'm a little disappointed in that. Although at the end they do play a Dio song. They play Rainbow in the Dark, which again makes perfect sense. The Rainbow Bridge and all that. But like, yeah, it would have been cool to see more of that. I didn't understand some things of the plot, like why can Gorr summon the Bifrost? I thought, well, honestly, I thought Mjolnir was the thing that summoned the Bifrost, but apparently Thor can summon the Bifrost using Stormbreaker. Okay, but so then can anyone summon the Bifrost, or how does that work? I don't know. At some point, Thor gives his power to the kids. Cool, fun little scene. The girl with the little stuffed animal, that was cool. But like, since when can he do that? I don't understand. And why didn't he do that when they were fighting Thanos? Like, what's going on here? And does that weaken him when he does give the people his power? Is that, I don't know. I thought the chemistry between Natalie Portman and Chris Hemsworth wasn't great, honestly. You know, they're both good-looking people, but that's not enough. Sometimes you need to have a little bit more than that. In particular, I like Natalie Portman in the role, and I think I like her in general. I think she's a good actress. I think she's attractive. She seems very smart. But I feel like she really struggled with the scenes where she was supposed to be sort of awkward. They do sort of this awkward comedy kind of thing. And any of those scenes where she's like trying to come up with a name for her hammer or something like that, it just really didn't work for me very much. And I want to give her the benefit of the doubt of saying that it's because she's a smart, confident person who probably isn't very awkward in real life, so isn't really good at being awkward. I don't know. I feel like, again, I'd heard a little bit about, you know, before the movie came out, people complaining. It seemed like a lot of kind of these anti-SJW woke kind of guys getting upset because they dared to give a woman agency or purpose in a movie. And that didn't bother me. And I was actually sort of expecting Natalie Portman to take over as Thor in this movie. And Chris Hemsworth, hey, he's made 4 movies now, and you know, a bunch of other side movies and Avengers movies. Like, it's time to retire. Good for him. He's been doing it for almost 15 years. But no, that's not what happened. She actually just dies at the end. And a lot of the women are kind of sidelined. Like, they help out in the middle in this quest, and then at the end, it's like, no, Valkyrie got stabbed in the kidney and lost her kidney, and then Jane's almost dead with cancer now. So it's the all Thor show now, and it's like, well, okay, but okay. And of course, Natalie Portman, you know, Mighty Thor does come back, and that's cool. But also, like, did we need that? Or I feel like there could have been a better way to do that arc. And then they do this "My name is Mighty Thor" or Dr. Jane Foster scene. I get what they're going for, and I'm sure maybe for some people that was a powerful moment, but for me that was just kind of cringy and silly. Again, I get it; it's cool. I like Mighty Thor. I like Jane Foster as Thor, but it was a little too like on the nose kind of thing. Like I said, it's just like, it's all the elements are there for a really good movie. And I feel like if I were to describe this movie to somebody else and they were to, you know, say, hey, there's all these GNR songs and all this color palette and it's really cool, you would sound good. It just, there's something missing. And I can't honestly quite say exactly what it is, but it's just one of those where like, I feel like I should like this movie and I wanted to like this movie, but it didn't quite do it for me. So other than that, the director is Taika Waititi. He did Boy, which was an Oscar-winning short, I believe. What We Do in the Shadows, which they have a TV show about, and the movie. Hunt for the Wilder People, which is honestly probably my favorite Taika Waititi movie and one of my favorite movies. I think it's hilarious. It's one of the funniest movies, and I love that movie. And then Jojo Rabbit, which is the movie about the little Hitler Youth kids. It was written by him as well as Jennifer Kaytin Robinson. I'm not familiar with her. It looks like she's done a couple things, Unpregnant and Someone Great. They're both things I'm unfamiliar with, and they don't look like the kind of stuff I would like necessarily. I'm guessing maybe those are kind of romantic comedies, and they brought her in to kind of consult on the romantic comedy angle of the movie, because Taika doesn't have as much experience with that. I don't know. I don't know exactly what the division of labor was between them or anything like that either. But yeah, a lot of this is also based on Jason Aaron's run on Thor. Both the Gorr the God Butcher and the Mighty Thor thing were two kind of separate arcs that they sort of combined for this movie. I've read some of those, and I've read some Jason Aaron stuff. I like his writing generally, but they did change a fair amount of things here, I think. And like I said, combined two separate stories. So maybe it would have been better to do just one separate, just Gorr the God Butcher or just Mighty Thor as their own thing. I don't know. Like I said, this is the 29th movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so that's a lot of movies, and it had a $250 million budget, so it's a big budget. It looks like though it's going to make back its money. I think it's going to make 150 million or something this weekend alone, so it'll probably be fine. So like I said, I feel like with this movie, there's a lot of these kind of incel neckbeard kind of guys who get all upset about, how it seems like some of the Marvel movies are giving women more agency and kind of putting them more to the forefront. The guys who got upset over Captain Marvel and stuff like that. So I really think there maybe was an opportunity in this movie to kind of deal with that, to have Thor kind of be the avatar for these kind of guys who are upset that women are kind of, gaining power, and sort of have him deal with the ramifications of having, a woman take over his mantle and his hammer. Maybe not. Maybe that would have been terrible to do, but I don't know. Could have been something, or even they could have done something where Thor didn't want to work with them or her at first, and kind of had to learn to work together at the end, which again has been done 1,000 times, and maybe that would have been a less interesting movie. But I don't know. I guess it would have been an arc that made more sense to me. So a lot of the things I'm confused about is the Guardian stuff. Like, when does this movie take place in the timeline? Does this take place is Guardians of the Galaxy 3 going to be after this? And if so, then we're just skipping over his adventures with the Guardians, which, okay, but it just seems like they ended Endgame with that and they set it up. So the Russo brothers, whoever, was like, oh, let's get Thor and Guardians together. That'll be fun. And then Taika's like, nah, I don't want to do that. Or James Gunn or whoever is like, nah, it's fine. We'll skip over that. And hey, sometimes that happens. You get an idea, you think it'll be fun, and then you start writing it and you go, nah, you know what? I don't like this as much. But it does seem a little bit of a cop-out where you're like, no, I was promised a Thor and Guardians movie, and I didn't get it. Apparently Jeff Goldblum and Peter Dinklage had some roles in this that were cut, and Lena Headey was also in it, and her role was cut. She ended up suing them and getting a couple million for it, I think, or $1.5 million. I don't know what her role was. I'm curious to know if it was recast or just cut entirely. Hopefully we'll find out eventually. There are parts of the movie that I saw that I thought, oh, this would be kind of cool in 3D. And I honestly thought 3D was done. I didn't know they were still doing 3D. Apparently they are. I don't think my theater was playing it, or if it was, I didn't notice, but could have been cool in 3D. There were some cool visuals and I'm sure did look great in 3D. And I have heard that. Like I said, Dio at the end, great. I love Dio. It would have been nice to get more in there though than just 4 GNR songs and a Dio song. There are a couple more songs in there, but I honestly didn't notice them at all. I just saw them in the credits. As far as the credits go, post-credits, we got Hercules shows up in the mid-credits scene. That was fun. I mean, I'm sitting there going like, I can't believe he killed Zeus. That's crazy. And I'm like, oh, but that gives him a reason to bring in Hercules. And of course, it's what they did. I didn't recognize him at first, but it was Brett Goldstein as Hercules from Ted Lasso. He plays Roy Kent on Ted Lasso. I did think it was interesting because when I saw him, I'm like, oh, that guy looks Greek. Okay, cool. But then I looked it up and he's Jewish. He's British in English. So maybe he's got some Greek heritage. Maybe it doesn't matter, but it seems like in Hollywood, where we're trying to be more and more careful about sort of the people that are chosen for the roles based on ethnicity, there's plenty of Greek actors out there. Get a Greek guy to play Hercules. Granted, The Rock played Hercules. He's certainly not Greek, so I don't know. There's also a post-credit scene with Heimdall welcoming Jane Foster to Valhalla, which was nice, I guess. A nice little kind of bookend for their characters. But I don't know. Like I said, I guess I'm disappointed she died. I was hoping to see her come back or take the mantle on, and maybe she didn't want to, and that's understandable. But even doing a thing with like she and Chris Hemsworth Thor and their adopted daughter is like a husband wife kind of family team would have been kind of fun. Maybe it would have been interesting. So I don't know, but it did say Thor will return. So it looks like Chris Hemsworth is coming back as Thor. So that's cool, I guess. So as far as what I thought of this movie, I think my score, I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10, which I realize is kind of a cop-out score, but that's kind of what it is. Parts of this movie were really good. Parts of this movie I really didn't like. And at the end of the day, there was just something missing that just I didn't enjoy it. I actually think I like Doctor Strange 2 better than this, which surprised me because this was my most anticipated Marvel movie, if not one of my most anticipated movies of the year. So maybe my expectations were a little too high. I had a friend who went in and saw it the night before, and he said it was great, thought it was really funny, and I went in and was kind of underwhelmed. So maybe it was the mood I was in, or maybe it's just me. But if you saw the movie, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great night, and I will see you here again next week.